Look, I know you've seen the title and you've had one of two reactions. Either A, you love when AEW takes shots at WWE and WWE takes shots at AEW, or two, you think it's really immature and really babyish and you're above all this. Well, why did you click? Because surely you knew what you were gonna get. Either way, I'm a Positive Pete and I just like to get down and have a bunch of fun. So my name is Simon Miller, this is What Culture Wrestling, and it's 10 times AEW took pretty good shots at WWE. Number 10, Tony Khan takes the credit. Now I understand it when people get really mad when a good idea is copied. That's exactly what you should do. Which is why when WWE did move the hard camera during the empty arena shows so it wasn't focused on the fans, and then eventually put Performance Center people in the audience, which clearly was inspired by AEW, I had no problem with it. It was the smart thing to do, and more importantly, it was the right thing to do. Go back and watch the deathly silent episodes now. You honestly think you're at a funeral. Of course, the internet had a field day with this though, shouting, oh, they've copied AEW, which of course they didn't. Even the Wrestling Observer's Brian Alvarez wrote in big block capitals, they moved the hard camera. And do you know who replied to that? It was the one and only Tony Khan. Posting a gif from Spider-Man which was essentially saying, well, they definitely took the idea from me. Well, they did take that idea from him, so he's allowed to take the credit. Like I say, it was good all around, and good on him for coming up with it in the first place. Number 9, mocking the invisible wall. Happening way back when we were building to the Cody versus Chris Jericho AEW World Title feud, you may remember on an episode of Dynamite, the Inner Circle sat in an executive box and they locked the door. And the reason they did lock this door is because mostly in wrestling companies, if you do things like this, it acts as an invisible wall or whatever, and nobody can ever get through, try as you might. Well, as we know, All Elite Wrestling likes to do things a little bit differently, so Cody said this to them, look, I can just smash through this thing. They're like, no, you can't. And he did. And he beat Chris Jericho up. The American Nightmare also said, like in that other company, which was the only words that were needed to once again send people out of their minds. And I like this because it's true. I was talking about it the other day. Like, you try and beat somebody up in the ring and they run backstage, and for some reason the person that wanted to put a whooping on you stands in the squared circle where he could just keep going and probably catch you backstage. So once again, I think they were correct. Number 8, Tony Khan runs wild on Twitter. This one was just nuts. Even I read it and I was like, oh boy, what the hell is gonna happen now? Because after CM Punk had announced that he was gonna be joining Backstage, the FS1 show that focused on WWE, he tweeted that nobody was safe and tagged in a bunch of people, including AEW's Tony Khan. And do you know how he replied to that? He wrote, no one is safe, ? That sounds like a bunch of wrestlers stuck on a plane in Saudi Arabia. Pow, pow. This was obviously talking about that Saudi Arabia controversy that had gone down following one of WWE's Saudi Arabia shows, and it even sparked Randy Orton to make a comment on social media saying, well, Khan family, we know you're corrupt too, so maybe you should shut up. Khan then responded to that by reminding Randy Orton about the time that he used the N-word. This was unreal. This was unbelievable. Don't you tell me there's no war or competition between AEW and WWE. I saw it with my own eyes. Number 7, Kenny Omega sticks it to the man and the boys. Happening when the fires of this feud were just beginning and WWE decided to program an Evolve show that for some reason was on the WWE network at exactly the same time as AEW was having a show. Well, it annoyed Kenny Omega, and it annoyed Kenny Omega then some. Because not only did he use that as a jumping off pad to go himself on Twitter and start ripping into World Wrestling Entertainment for their disgusting Saudi Arabia shows, but then on an episode of BTE, he called Dominik Dijakovic Donovan Dickhead. This was honestly a visceral takedown of everything that was going up in New York. And I'm sure one day Kenny Omega could still work for the company, but if you told me this may have just put him in their bad books, I'd probably say, yeah, you're right. Number 6, Jon Moxley is a different kind of cat. Happening in the build to that Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega match that you remember when they both tried to kill each other, this was Jon, who obviously used to be Dean Ambrose in WWE, deciding, well, I've said all this stuff on podcasts, I think I should say something on TV, and that's exactly what he did on Dynamite. Because as he was running down the cleaner during one of his promos in some kind of trash yard or something, he said that everybody throughout the years has always called him a different kind of a cat. And honestly, go and listen or watch any kind of interview from Seth Rollins to Roman Reigns to Randy Orton. They do all say that about Dean Ambrose, who of course now is Jon Moxley. I thought we'd made that clear. It was an absolutely incredible promo though, and more power to him. And let's just say, it's hard to argue with Jon Moxley at this stage, because he was a bit of a comedy goof on Raw and SmackDown, and on Dynamite, not only is he a pure fire ratings draw, but he comes across like an absolute psycho who would indeed kick your ass at a moment's notice. Number 5, Brody Lee and the Old Man. You can look at any of Brody Lee's traits when he first walked into the company, and we'll do that in just one second. But right here at number 5, I want to focus on a singular line, which did make people go, oh my gosh, that was brilliant. Because when Lee was indeed feuding with Christopher Daniels, he looked at the bald guy, shout out to you, Chris, I massively respect you, and said, well, Daniels, you won't be the first out-of-touch old man not to believe in me. All of a sudden, jaws just dropped and they were like, oh my gosh. A direct jab at Vinnie Mac, who clearly didn't believe in Luke Harper at all, especially during those last 12 to 18 months. This was him finally climbing back up the ladder, and I will say on a personal level, I think he's done brilliant. And if you're still on the fence, go and watch the BTE. Anytime Brody Lee and Griff Garrison are on the screen, it is excellent. Number 4, Brody Lee's Vince McMahon parody. And yes, following on from that, how the hell can we not include all of this when we're talking about AEW guys taking shots at WWE? We were taking shots at the dude that owns the damn place. Because not only was Brody eating steaks, he was telling people off for sneezing, he was telling people off for yawning, he was even wearing suits that look like Vince McMahon, and I don't care what anybody else says, that was the inspiration. If you want to tell me otherwise, you are wasting your time. He does seem to be doing this a lot less now, which I actually think is for the best, and I suppose he just needed to get rid of all this baggage he had been carrying on his back for so long. We now move forward, and I tell you, I'm excited. I think Luke Harper, Brody Lee, whatever the hell you want to call him, is untapped talent. Number 3, Cody breaks that throne. Yes, a lot of people absolutely despise this, and I kind of get it, but at Double or Nothing, Cody, before his match, did indeed take a sledgehammer, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and went and used said sledgehammer to destroy a throne, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you're not keeping up with me, the sledgehammer of the throne were clear shots at the one and only Triple H. A visual analogy that was meant to tell you that AEW is different from WWE and that Cody, even though kind of having the same position as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, isn't going to abuse his power. Look, did it get people talking? Yes, it did, and while it was a little bit cheesy, meh, I think it's fun to look back on. If nothing else, it was a power play by a very intelligent man who knows how to walk this tightrope almost perfectly. Listen to every single thing Cody says. He knows what he's doing. Number 2, Chris Jericho and that line. Chris Jericho was able to turn Jack Swagger into Jake Hager on the 2nd episode of AEW Dynamite by saying one single sentence which got one of the biggest pops you're ever likely to hear in the modern day. Because as the crowd, who were obviously familiar with Jack Swagger, started to chant "We the People" at him, Chris Jericho went into Chris Jericho mode and said, yeah, well that was a stupid line from Stupid Creative, and you're not gonna get that kind of thing here in All Elite Wrestling. It was an absolutely brilliant way to shut that down, and it hasn't happened since, and also did indeed rebuild Jack Swagger as Jake Hager, and no nonsense, I'm gonna kick your ass dude, and if you get in my face, I'll flush you down the toilet. That's pretty much what he's done ever since. He's a mountain. The fact that Le Champion just came up with this on the spot too, or maybe had it in his back pocket just in case this happened, is absolutely tremendous, and that's something else we can talk about as well, the freedom that AEW gets. It's a freedom that WWE desperately needs. Number 1, the Sheldon Freud Hour. Now, one of the silliest things that WWE still does is those backstage interviews where the backstage interviewer asks the most ridiculous question, like a dude has just had a match and he's pouring with blood and he's lost, and then somebody sticks a microphone in his face and says, how did that make you feel? Are you okay? And then they have to answer this like you wouldn't just spit on this person and walk off. To parody this though, AEW had their own little spin on it when Matt Jackson was essentially running Hangman Adam Page down for drinking too much. He's like, why do you do this? And what the hell are you going to do on the other side when you're a wandering alcoholic? At first, Hangman seemed absolutely shaken, but then using some camera trickery, an absolutely cartoonishly big beer pitcher came into shot and he drank the whole thing. So this was a general mockery of that WWE trope that has been around for ages, but it was also one that if you got it, great, but also may have just gone over your head and you would have gone, ha, what a funny little comedy skit. Just when it seemed like AEW had fallen into a trap, they actually subverted it gloriously, and I tell you, I don't mind if these companies keep wanting to play tennis with each other. It's fun for me, just don't take it too far and always know when to put on the Roman Reigns. I'm an idiot. Know of any other AEW shots fired or WWE shots fired at AEW? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and then like the video, share the video, and hit subscribe. It's free. Head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. Just for the crazies, look, I love both AEW, NXT, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact. I think they're all awesome. Let's just enjoy wrestling. I'll see you soon.